you look at the number of stem cells that we have in our body when we're infants versus the number of stem cells we have in our bodies when we're 60 or 70, it's a dramatic difference between the early stage and the later stage. And the ability to recover from injury is a real thing if you didn't know it already from your own personal experience. So the idea with treating with peptides is to restore the natural levels of recovery so that and of your own stem cells, so that you can recover faster from injury, recover faster from whatever you've gone through. So there are some repair peptides that we use in things like tendinitis and arthritis in those sort of inflammatory states.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest is Dr. Suzanne Ferree, who specializes in performance and longevity medicine. And we're going to be talking about those things as well as peptides and various other topics around anti-aging, regenerative medicine, and longevity. But first, I'd like to invite you to visit my website, theexplodinghuman.com. Over there, you can listen to episodes, read synopses, see photos of my guests. There's also a little bio on myself. And there is a YouTube channel where you can also listen. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. As I said, my guest is Dr. Suzanne Ferree. She is the founder of Medical Associates and the Cellular Medicine Institute. And we're going to be talking about the use of peptides in performance, longevity, and anti-aging, hormone replacement with bioidentical hormone therapy, and what we can learn from our lab work. We also get into talking about prostate health. So let's get into this. Here she is. This is Dr. Suzanne Ferree. Good morning, Suzanne. I'm so glad you're here with me this morning. You're in Atlanta. Where am I? I'm in Los Angeles. So I'm happy to have you here. The first thing I wanted to ask you is, you're an MD, but there's also many other letters after your name. Can you explain?
Well, conventionally, MDs will put their fellowship initials after their name. So the American Board of Anti-Aging Medicine is ABAARM. Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine is that first one. And that's just saying I'm board certified in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. And then not only that, but I went on to get the fellowship in anti-aging and regenerative medicine. So that's the FAARM, which is hilarious, but
yeah. Well, it means you studied some stuff. Okay. So when you see the two A's, it means anti-aging, which I guess is something that a lot of people are interested in. Now that I'm 70, I'm a little more interested than I was when I was 25. That's for sure.
Of course.
But I think what most people want is, however long they do live, they want to feel good and they want to feel healthy. They want to have as what people are calling it now, a health span. How long can I live and be healthy at the same time? Because who wants to have 5-10 years of crap? You don't want that.
Right. We talk about using a square lifespan. So as opposed to a bell-shaped curve with a slow beginning and then a slow decline into death. We want your life to be really healthy right up until the moment that you die. And then boom, you just take off. That's what our hopes are.
That's my hope, because I've seen the opposite of that. And it's not fun to watch somebody you love and care about have a slow decline where their life, my own father used to say to me, I'm not sick enough to die and I'm not well enough to enjoy my life. And because I feel trapped, because I'm constantly frustrated. And
how old was he when he passed?
Well, pretty old, 94.
Oh, that's that's pretty good.
Yeah. So as my buddy says, you got good numbers. My mom was 93. My dad was 94. So, I do have some, probably some genetic predisposition to living a long life, but who knows? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And today I feel pretty good. So, and obviously I do this podcast because that's one of the things that I am the most interested in, is how to lead an optimally healthy life. And you got involved with, well, I want to start with peptides, because can you explain what peptides are? This is all new to me this year. I did not know about this until this year. It's become this thing that people are talking about. What are they? Are they specific to different things? How do you take them? And the question I have never had answered is, what does it cost?
That's great. So peptides very simply are, think about a chicken breast, and we think about chicken breast having protein and fat in it as its components. And those proteins that are in chicken breast, for example, by convention, we say that a protein is anything that's over 150 amino acids in length. So in order to have a protein, you have to string together a sequence of amino acids that is unique to that particular protein. By convention, if it's between 50 and 150 amino acids long, we call it a polypeptide. And by convention, under 50 amino acids, we call a peptide. Anything under 4 amino acids, we call a bioregulator peptide, because it can also cross through the nucleus into the mitochondria and change the way that mitochondria function and the way the nucleus function. So that is the conventional terminology that we use to help us make decisions about them. Peptides have been around since the 1920s, or were discovered in the 1920s. You think about Pavlov's dog. He was actually not studying the Pavlovian response. He was studying the production of saliva and some digestive enzymes in dogs. And digestive enzymes are a peptide. So these are created by your body in the original sense. Insulin is a peptide, for example. Growth hormone is a peptide. We make them all the time to do all kinds of jobs in our body. They cause things to happen that we want to happen. So the creation of energy for every cell requires multiple peptides to make that process occur. The creation of other peptides requires multiple peptides to make that occur. So these are happening in our body all the time, and we have been discovering them very slowly over time. The first one was secretin. Another famous one is oxytocin. You probably have heard of oxytocin. That's the love hormone that's produced particularly when during childbirth for the attachment of the mother and baby, but also it's used, its pharmaceutical version, Pitocin, is used to help with women to contract the uterus. And so that's the example that we have, or one of many examples we have. Because pharmaceutical companies are not allowed to patent a natural substance, they have to slightly modify it in order for it to be used in the body. Often this does allow us to take advantage of the effects of the peptide to a greater extent. And this is one of the reasons. So for example, the newer weight loss and diabetes peptides that are available, the GLP-1 analogs like semaglutide, are slightly modified from the original peptide that is created by your body in order to prevent it from being degraded by the enzyme that normally breaks it down, and in order to allow it to bind to a carrier protein to be transported around the body.
Okay, so that being said, what's Pepto-Bismol? I'm kidding. I think ideally, probably, we want our bodies to function and our peptides to function properly without any sort of intervention, if we can do that.
Yes.
But when that isn't the case, let's say, now I was talking to a guy who right before the interview, he said, "Oh, I just injected some peptides," and I'm like, "Why would you do that?" He didn't tell me why. I didn't really ask him that. I'm thinking, why did you do that? Why do people do this? What are the most common uses that people would say, "Oh, I need to go down this road because these things aren't working"? And I'm sure there's things that are more common than other things.
We know that aging begins around the age of 35 or 40, that if we talk about lifespan being sort of a pinnacle and then the pinnacle sort of declines past an age, that age is somewhere between 35 and 40. If you think about professional athletes, most of them, their peak performance time occurs in that 25 to 30 range, and then their performance declines. And this is really because the reproductive age is then, and our reproduction begins to decline after that point. So if we're thinking teleologically or whatever, that this is a process that's occurring in order to preserve the species, to continue to maintain the ability of the species to generate itself or regenerate itself. And so our bodies will decrease their production of the more youthful peptides as we age. So youthful peptides being things like the thymus gland or immune system peptides, the more youthful peptides like growth hormone releasing hormone, like ghrelin, things that are going to cause our body in general to behave in a more youthful style. Those will decline as we age. GHKCU is a perfect example. We decrease that by significant numbers as we age. It starts out somewhere in the 200s. It goes down to something like 60 when we're in our 60s. So this is a process of declining presence of these more useful peptides. If we can give those to ourselves exogenously, the reasonably science-based theory is that we can prolong our youthful life. And when I say reasonably science-based, most of the science is done in animals. There isn't a lot of human data. There is some for sure, but there isn't a tremendous amount of human data, but there is a lot of animal data supporting its use in anti-aging reasons as well as just general health reasons.
Yeah. So give me an example of somebody that might come to you with an issue that you would recommend peptides. I like the anecdotal kind of stories because that can really, it's kind of like you can talk to me about music theory, but if I don't hear the music, I have no idea what's going on.
Right. So there's two kind of patients who come to me. One is a sick patient who has some sort of illness. So I have one right now. She's in her mid 60s. She has MS, primary progressive MS. And we treated her with several of the thymus gland peptides, as well as a few of the mitochondrial peptides to get her moving. We made some lifestyle changes. And what I always encourage people to keep in mind, this is an icing on the cake type therapy for a lot of people. So I want you to make sure if you're not taking care of your microbiome and your intestine, if you're not taking care of your diet, if you're not moving your body, most of these aren't really going to help very much. Some of them will do some things, but there's a lot of lifestyle things that must be done: sleeping well, managing stress, meditation, yoga, all the things. And so on top of that, we'll add things like these peptides that work on the immune system, that work on the mitochondria, so that the mitochondria are telling the nucleus which proteins and peptides to be transcribing so that they can be used in the body to create this more youthful state, as opposed to continuing to produce this age declining state.
So a lot of these diseases that people get, some of the chronic stuff, and maybe even MS, I don't know, are lifestyle diseases that because people aren't taking care of themselves properly with nutrition and sleep and the stress, that a lot of this stuff gets exacerbated. There may be, a genetic predisposition to those things, obviously. I think what you just said was really important, that people need to do their part. In other words, we'll meet you there, but you gotta come to the party with, the goods.
Exactly. And there are patients that we will say, it doesn't appear that you are aligned with our way of practicing medicine and our way of believing that people should be. And so when you're ready for that, please come back. But in the meantime, I want to give your spot to someone else. I only have 100 patients right now. So want to be sure that those people are actively participating in their care. I have another patient who has a pretty significant kidney disease that is autoimmune related in a similar way. And we've treated him similarly with some autoimmune peptides, or some immune peptides with some mitochondrial peptides. But also we've given him several of the growth hormone related peptides to try to reverse this ship that has gone awry for him, to improve his immune system overall. We know that the growth hormone is very involved in protecting the thymus gland from continued fat decline. The thymus gland is replaced with fat as we age. And so these growth hormone peptides can help with reversing that thymic fat fraction. The second kind of category of patient that we see commonly are entrepreneurs, CEOs of corporations who are at the prime of their life and don't want it to stop. And they're competing in whatever their sport is of preference, their tennis or their whatever, and they want to be able to continue doing both their career and their sport at their optimal level, whatever that is for them. And so helping them to be able to recover faster is also part of our goal, and keeping them cognitively sharp so that they can continue to do their career at their optimal level as well.
So there's specific things that you're targeting with some patients, and then there's an overall kind of health to make it so people can function at an optimal level. Those are probably different treatments and different approaches.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I have noticed, being 70 years old, that there are certain things that are not the same. Of course, I get injured in my sleep.
Yes, we do.
That's always cracks me up. You go to bed, you go, I feel pretty good. And you get, what happened to my shoulder? I wasn't doing it. That kind of stuff. And the recovery times for injuries or illness seem to be a little bit longer too as I've aged. Not significantly, but enough that I notice it, where I'm like, wow, this bruise is like taking like a week and a half, where it used to be like a day or a couple of days.
You look at the number of stem cells that we have in our body when we're infants versus the number of stem cells we have in our bodies when we're 60 or 70. It's a dramatic difference between the early stage and the later stage. And the ability to recover from injury is a real thing if you didn't know it already from your own personal experience. So the idea with treating with peptides is to restore the natural levels of recovery so that and of your own stem cells, so that you can recover faster from injury, recover faster from whatever you've gone through. So there are some repair peptides that we use in things like tendinitis and arthritis in those sort of inflammatory states.
What's the delivery system? I know that injection is one of them. Are there other delivery systems?
So it depends on the peptide. Many of them are by injection. Some of them are available topically, and some of them by oral route of administration. The majority of the oral ones are the smaller peptides, the 3-4 amino acids. There are a few ways we can pair these peptides with other chemicals that will help us to bypass the stomach problem. There's a molecule called SNAC that improves the way that the peptides are absorbed in the stomach. It still requires much higher doses than would be required to take it by injection. So the expense is greater, not only for the SNAC, but also for the higher dose of peptide. And they can be pricey, as you suggested. Depending on the month, each peptide can cost around $250 to $500 per month. And we're usually talking about stacking 2 to 4 peptides at a time and then rotating them every 3 to 4 months, depending on what your program is.
Yeah, so you're looking at $1,000 a month for a lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's about what I spend at Starbucks.
That would be a good lifestyle change.
Yeah, I don't go there, but I just thought that would be a something, but when people here, let me say this. Yes, it's expensive, but I think people that, and I have never done this, and I'd be curious just to see how I felt, but it's priorities. I think people sometimes will not realize how much they're spending and how much time they're giving to things that don't help them at all, or just, frivolous, if you want to put a judgment on it, which I just did. So
well, your $300 cable bill, for example.
Yeah.
What is that getting you?
Folks, you don't need all that cable. That's what we're here to talk about today is cable. That's a good example though of I got to have 90,000 channels and watch two. It's and also eating out at restaurants, and which actually isn't very healthy when you think about the way they prepare, even put seed oils on things everywhere, which has become something that is determined to be not very healthy, folks. That's what we know. This is my sort of take on restaurants. I don't enjoy how I feel after I eat at a restaurant. I really don't. And I don't even like to be waited on. It's kind of creepy to me too. Is that wrong? Is that a wrong thing to think? I mean, I know people they have their jobs and you want to support people, but why am somebody bringing me my stuff? Okay.
Who brings it to you at home?
What'd you say?
Who brings it to you at home?
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and my wife, we do it together. I mean, if anybody brings it to me, if it's not me, it's her, and vice versa. It's, I'd like to say it's 50-50, but overall it's 50-50. Okay. So now let's talk about something else that you mentioned, which is hormones, because I know I was looking at your bio and you were talking about whoever wrote the bioidentical hormones as opposed to synthetic, and who's a candidate for that, and how do we know when our hormones are balanced or not balanced? Like, I'm not having hormonal issues as far as I know, but I don't know what the numbers are of that. Is there a panel that checks that out, and how do you balance it, and is it worth the time and effort if it's not, if it's less than optimal, but not so awful that you're feeling bad?
Sure. There are a couple of reasons why it's important, even in men, for us to figure out what your hormones are. So we order either a blood or a saliva or a urine, and there's just 3 different ways to look at it. Levels of hormones, and there's a panel of hormones that we order on patients, and we will if you're a man, one of the things that's concerning, we look at things like, again, how's your recovery? What's your percent body fat? Because if your percent body fat is fairly high, I can guarantee you that your hormones are out of balance. How's your sleep? What's your bone density, especially over the age of 50? Because hormones are very intricately involved in bone density and the ability to regenerate bone as we age. And so I would look at all of those factors as we're thinking about hormones. Then the other thing that's concerning is a decline in estrogen will affect the way that you are able to retain long-term memory. So being able to hold memories from whatever you learn or read about today for the next several months or for whatever period of time, that is affected significantly by your estrogen presence. So is everyone a candidate? I would say the answer is yes. Does everyone qualify? Are there things that would be concerning? I would say an active cancer would certainly be a disqualifier for hormone replacement therapy. But then other than that, we would need to just have a discussion about what your needs are, what your goals are, and what your symptoms are, and then what your history is. And if we need to be cautious in light of, there are more expansive panels we can do in light of people's family history or personal history that can be helpful. Most of the time, if we start out with some sort of significant detoxification, most patients are able to, and that can be a wide variety of things. It can be dietary alone. It can be all kinds of things. But if often just that will help to balance hormones. Resetting the microbiome can help balance hormones. So obviously gut health is a significant part of that. We know that those are critical to be actively monitored and managed before we start you on some sort of hormone replacement therapy, because they are involved in how the body processes the hormones after you receive them. So let's say your microbiome is disrupted when you take a hormone, either topically or by injection or in many other forms. The microbes will break off. Most of them get a little flag attached to them that says this is for the trash. And so they go out through the stool. Well, the microbiome, if it's not working properly or if it's out of balance, then it's going to cleave off that flag and those hormones get recycled. So the levels just keep going up and up and up as we are unable to release them because of the imbalance in the microbiome. So all of that needs to be addressed first, and then we add on hormones second.
Again, lifestyle is really the start for all of it.
For all of it.
Obviously, different people process things differently. Genetically, they're just different. Some people. I did a genetic profile, and it was very interesting stuff. From mood and behavior, even through cardiovascular and methylation, and what gene I had, what version of the gene I have. So I have my history, or my genetic readout. And some of the things that came up were really interesting, particularly in mood and behavior. Like, I do have this tendency to be this way. And so, free will, I'm not so sure. There's a biological, I sort of look at it like there's only so far you can move away from your biology, your genetics. And, you can alter things and make them as optimal as possible. For instance, the ability to build muscle mass is not something that I'm super predisposed to do well. Not that I have a terrible version of it or anything, but it's not optimal. Let's put it that way. And I always wonder, why is it that I can't do that? And I don't even try to do it that hard, but and I know it's important as I age to do that. But I'm like, is there a way to do that? Is there a way to up that and to have that work better? Does peptides, does hormone replacement, does stem cell, which I want to get into too a little bit, because I know that's part of the whole thing that's going on now too, is some overall stem cell. I'm talking a lot of stuff here. Grab onto something I said.
So yes. So the most important thing about muscle building is consistency. That's the hardest part, is consistency. Getting to the gym, being consistent. I go 4 days a week for an hour and a half to 2 hours every time. And I've been doing that for 5 years. That's how I built muscle. It's not by any of the peptides I use. It's not by any of the other things I do. It's consistency. So it's funny to be in the gym and overhear other people talking, saying, hey, when am I going to start to see results? How am I going to start to see? And it's a process. And often those are people who are not coming consistently. They'll have an excuse why they can't come on Tuesday, and it's a holiday, so I'm not coming that day. Obviously I'm competitive. I'm in competition, so I'm doing this for a reason. There's a purpose in being so consistent, but the outcome of the consistency is the ability to build muscle over my lifetime, and hopefully to be able to maintain my muscle over my lifetime. So number one, consistency. Number two, you have to eat. And this is a big problem for women, because we have a tendency to say, I don't want to eat too much because I'll get too fat. And if you are doing resistance training, it's much more difficult for you to put on body fat. It's not impossible, obviously. And women over 40, I'm highly encouraging them to be very involved in resistance exercise, but you have to eat at least a minimum amount of calories. And there are ways we can figure out what that minimum is for you in order to maintain muscle mass. Otherwise, you're catabolic or burning through muscle in order to create energy, because the body will use sugar, fat, or protein to make energy. And if you aren't taking in enough calories, you're going to get that catabolic or body breakdown, including bone, in your life. So you have to be taking in adequate calories. The third thing I would say is working on recovery. So I only do 4 days a week because I need those days of recovery. I didn't need this many days of recovery when I was 20, but I need them now. And training as hard as I am, I need to make sure that I'm persisting with my rest days and sleeping at night, getting adequate sleep at night. So all of that is part of muscle building. And then the composition of what I'm eating. So making sure I'm getting adequate protein. And this is one of the biggest concerns for people over 40 is they tend to not eat as much protein. Chicken breast has about 30 grams of protein. For my exercise and my plan, I need to be eating around 120 grams of protein a day. So that's like 4 chicken breasts. And so that's quite a bit of volume of food. So I do some supplements in order to get to that 120 number, but making sure you're taking in adequate nutrients and the correct macros in those nutrients around your workouts is really important if muscle building is your goal. Hydration, there's a few, creatine is one of the things that we know has some really good research on its muscle building ability. Certainly testosterone in adequate doses, adequate amounts, either in your own body or exogenous testosterone as we age in order to reach a normal level of testosterone. And then being able to, because it is anabolic or body building. So you won't be able to build muscle if your testosterone is too low. And then we add things on for muscle recovery, things like the growth hormones, secretagogues, that are going to improve your recovery time, improve your ability to sustain injury and quickly bounce back.
It seems overwhelming when you hear it all at once, but I think as you move through that kind of thing, you kind of figure out what works for you. I'm sure you have to be a little bit of a test tube for yourself. I think, what works, that doesn't work. That does work.
And I've tried most of them on myself. So
yeah, I've tried a bunch of stuff. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. Sounds like you are very active in your health personally, as well as helping other people. It does take a lot of mindfulness and time to do this stuff. I always wonder, how much do I really want to do, and how much am I like, this is good enough. Some days I'm like, Another reason not to work out is I don't feel like it. That's a really good reason. It's another one. Mm-hmm. Those weights are heavy. I do yoga. That's my big one, and I'm very consistent with that.
Yeah.
I just started incorporating some other strength training, but I don't like it. But I'm doing it anyway until I like it. I'm going to do it until I like it.
We say in my office, because I have other bodybuilders in the office or muscle builders in the office, and we say, I love it, I love it, I love it when we're eating, and it's like the last bite of chicken breast or turkey sandwich or whatever it is, you're like, I can barely eat one more bite. You're like, I love it, I love it, I love it. And get the last bite, because you got to get, you have to count those macros. You've got to get that last bite in, even if you don't feel like it.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's things that work really well that aren't always fun. Let's put it that way.
Do you feel better when you get done with the workout?
Yes. That's why I go back.
That's me too.
Yeah.
I can think of 1,000 reasons why I shouldn't go.
Yeah.
And then I
do feel better.
You have to go. You'll feel so much better if you just go.
Yeah. I have that with yoga too. There's days I just don't feel like going to the place, and I don't want to do it at home because I'm not disciplined enough to pull the routines off. And I do like a little bit of the energy of having multiple people in a room. I like that. I like the human connection, and I like the being pushed a little bit. But there's days I'm like, I don't want to be here, and I get there and I don't want to do it, and I start, and by the end I'm like, boy, I'm really glad I did that.
I have a team that a crew that I train with, and they expect me to be there. If I'm not there, they want to know why. And they're calling me saying, are you okay? What's wrong? Because I'm always there.
Yeah, they go, what's wrong? Nothing. I just don't feel like helping you today. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Because we depend on each other. The weight that we lift is pretty heavy. And so you have to depend on the other people to spot you, all that. And so if I'm not present, there's a weak link there.
One of the biggest health things, and people don't talk about this, it's the mental health aspect of it that feeds the physical health, is connection with other people. You don't hear many health practitioners talking about it. But for me, I think that is like, they talk about it for longevity, communities where people live a long time. They talk about that. That's the only time I've really heard it talk about. I've never had a doctor tell me that. What's your social situation? Are you involved with people? They don't ask that question. Never. Mm-hmm. Let me talk about this for a second. The labs that they order, conventional sort of, your family doctor, they're very limited. I don't know if they're limited because, well, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is insurance doesn't want to pay for them. The doctors aren't that interested in them beyond this certain red flag kind of issue. And I did ask my doctor to order some labs, and he got back to me and he goes, why? Why do you want these? When I told him why I wanted them, he ordered them. But he said, I don't know if the insurance will pay for it. I don't know, but I'll try. So he's a good guy, but no one asks him asks for these things. So let me advocate for asking for labs.
Absolutely. We do. The panel we do is probably 20 to 25 labs. And every time I order it, I say, I know this is going to be, it's because it'll take me probably, I don't know, 30 to 45 minutes to review your labs with you. So we set up a follow-up appointment 10 days after the labs are drawn just to go over your labs, because it's going to take me a full visit just to discuss them. And a conventional doctor probably has 7 minutes. So that's all they have to be able to discuss the labs. They don't have 45 minutes to be able to sit down with you and say, okay, what did you eat the morning of this? What did you have to eat the night before? Okay. Is there a stressor happening? Did your mom die? Did you just have COVID? What's going on in your life that your cortisol might be high, or your DHEA might be low, or what's happening that your lymphocytes are low? Did you just get a vaccine recently? So we're looking at these variables in this big panel, and they all relate together. I can't look at any one of them individually. I have to look at the entire picture. And there's a million more I could do because everything depends on the other. And there are 3 or 4 tests that tell me about your thyroid. There are 3 or 4 tests that tell me about your, hormone panels. That they're 10 or 15 tests long. The reason for that is I want to look at every single aspect of your health if I can. Not everything is available in blood, and no test is perfect, but we do the best we can with what we have available. And we pair that with your symptoms as well as your history. And often we'll come up with some really interesting results.
Yeah, and that's a whole skill in itself, is reading the labs and interpreting them. I don't know how much that is even discussed in medical school. I don't know.
I think part of this problem is the gap between bench science medicine and clinical patient medicine. I think there's a big gap there that's not bridged. And, if you look at the labs and you look at what an average normal is, it's an average normal of all the patients who send in their blood to that particular lab. But that doesn't mean it's the optimal level for the patient. When you go into the science and you read about alkaline phosphatase, or you read about albumin, or you read about lymphocyte count to, neutrophil to lymphocyte ratios, you really see that there's the range that's on the lab is only so you don't die. It's not so that you are functioning in your optimal health. And so a blood sugar, for example, of 99 is considered normal. A blood sugar of 126 is diabetes. 125 is normal. So the research shows that for a blood sugar over 87, this is fasting morning blood sugar, over 87, for every point above 87 that fasting blood sugar goes, your risk for developing diabetes in the next 10 years goes up by 6%. So if we have a 97 blood sugar, we have a 60% increased risk of developing diabetes in the next 10 years. No one's talking about that.
Yeah.
And I want to know, and this is the patients that I see, the patients who are coming to me, they don't want to wait until they have diabetes to be told they have diabetes. They want to know that their blood sugar is trending in the wrong direction. What can we do to right that ship?
We'll keep an eye on it till it hits the bad number is foolish. It's foolish. And I know particularly with, because I did a little looking into testosterone in particular, that the optimal ranges have been lowered over time. Like the testosterone was higher back in the 40s and 50s, 60s even, than it is now. And some of the people are even talking about if it's above 900, I think it was that was dangerous for your heart. Just stuff that's not really, from everything I've read, not true.
And not based in science. You're exactly right, Bob. It's there's so much evidence that a normal testosterone level will improve cardiovascular risk.
I have two things I want to ask you about. What people talk about cell food. What is that, and how do I have that working for me the best that I can? I know food is very important, of course.
So it's interesting. Our cells' ability to make and use energy as we age declines. And so the cell has a choice, and it's somewhat based on what's available. It's kind of like you're hungry, you go to the kitchen, you look in the refrigerator, you can pick a bag of Twizzlers, you can pick an avocado, or you can pick a chicken breast. And so the cell has the same options. And so it's trying to decide what's going to give it the most energy to be able to do its job without too much energy left over that it has to then go through the process of storing somewhere. And so when we're eating too many calories, obviously the storage occurs. We get these lipid droplets inside the cell that act as storage, and we end up gaining weight. If we eat the wrong kinds of calories, we can have an excess of one macro, for example, carb, protein, fat. We can end up with an excess of one macro, and that also can be stored in these lipid droplets. And so what we really want to do is have this optimal balance among those macros based on your activity level and what your goals for your health are. So the cell has a choice. It can use glucose or sugar by itself. That gives you about 2 packets of energy. It can use glucose with oxygen, and that can give you about 30 packets of energy. It can use fat with oxygen, and that gives you about 100 packets of energy. We don't want it to use protein because that's a catabolic state where you're burning muscle, and that's not ideal. So obviously for fasting purposes, if that's what you're doing, there may be reasons why that would be a state you'd want to go into, but for health reasons other than that, but for an optimal healthy body, we really want to maintain or gain muscle mass as we can, and then use fat or sugar with oxygen as a process. If the cell has the ability to do that, to do glucose with or sugar with oxygen or fat with oxygen, it's in a way better state than if it's using glucose alone, which is glycolysis. That process is very fast, it's very efficient, but it is energy consuming. And over time, the cells will become very stressed if that's what they're doing, because it doesn't give them enough energy to continue to function long term.
You're not talking about people eating sugar for the glucose. You're just talking about the way glucose kind of works in the body. Or are you saying that?
Well, certainly sugar for glucose, but also a piece of everything is ultimately converted. Most things are ultimately converted to glucose. So like a baked potato, for example, or rice, for example, also converted to glucose as it's broken down into its integral parts. The glucose comes from a lot of the things that we eat, not just from sugar, but also from other, carbohydrates in general.
Okay. All right. So I'm wondering about something specific, being a man, which is prostate issues. Mm-hmm. I'll just say that I have had that ongoing. It's not terrible. It's not great. I take supplements for it, which helps. I would like to completely eliminate prostate issues. And I think most of the men I know that are my age, they're getting up at night. You don't want to do that if you don't have to. I had somebody say to me, take activated charcoal along with probiotic, and that will help with the inflammation that is causing it. I haven't done that. I don't know if that'll work. At one point in my history, and I don't know, I haven't talked about this with anybody on this show, so I feel comfortable talking to you about this. I had an infection when I was young, and it has never completely been the same. I didn't do much lifestyle changes or anything back when this happened. I was in my 20s, so now I'm 70 and I still have this issue. Is there a way to eliminate this problem? Have you seen a way, or at least make it so it isn't even, I don't even have to talk about it. That's you know what I'm saying?
So there's a couple of things. Realize that benign prostatic hypertrophy is a sympathetic dominant state. So the sympathetic nervous system is part of the autonomic nervous system. There's the fight or flight response, that's sympathetic. There's the parasympathetic, which is the rest and relax response. Benign prostatic hypertrophy is triggered by sympathetic dominance of the nerves leading to the prostate. So one of the things we do in our office is a procedure called neural therapy, where we do an infiltration of the inferior hypogastric nerve with a chemical called procaine, which is the original local anesthetic. After they figured out that cocaine was addictive, they changed the molecule to be procaine. And we use that because of its cell membrane resetting properties. And that's what we do for our patients in our office. That's one of the things we do. And we get really great results when we see that. The second thing I do in those patients in my patients is a topical estriol cream. Estriol is the little known ugly stepsister of estrogen. Estrogen is estradiol. And estriol, if applied in a cream to the shaft of the penis daily, can bind to the receptors on the prostate that can cause enlargement and can actually shrink the size of the prostate over time. So I will also put those patients on an topical estriol cream that they apply daily. That does take a little bit more time. It's not automatic. Obviously, there are procedures that can be done, PURP and lots of other green light laser, other things that can be done to shrink the size of the prostate. They are certainly more invasive than the two I mentioned, but those are options. So anything that you're doing for vagal nerve stimulation should be helpful because it's decreasing that sympathetic drive in the body.
So the vagus nerve is what you're talking about. Okay.
So things like breathing exercises, yoga, all of those should be helpful. But you're probably optimized. You've probably gotten the max benefit from yoga that you can since you do it regularly.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. So how come no one's told me any of this? No one. You go to a urologist, they don't talk about this stuff. They go which I really haven't done in decades, because they just gave me some sort of a pill to deal with infection. But obviously that's not the issue. Now it's a whole other thing that you're telling me, which I feel kind of stupid that I never found out this stuff before.
I mean, why would you feel stupid? The urologist doesn't know it.
Yeah. I feel stupid because I like it. I like to feel stupid. It's just a word I use. Well, yeah, I know. Isn't that amazing? Now here's a professional person, and they went through college. They're smart. They pass all the tests. They do this every day, and yet, they haven't learned this. And obviously, you weren't taught a lot of this stuff in conventional medical school.
No.
So what happened that you went, I got to find out more? I always find this interesting with my guests that are MDs when they go, well, I left medical school and I just felt like I didn't have the knowledge I wanted. Something was missing, or many things were missing. What happened that you went, oh, I got to find out more. This is not complete.
It was really patience. They were getting sick. They were sick. That I knew they were sick. They weren't making it up. And the conventional things I was doing weren't showing the problem, and they weren't getting better. And so just trying to find what's another tool, what's another thing, how can I help them to get better? Because I really want to make sure, I want to provide whatever things facilitate. That's what I consider myself, as a facilitator. I want to facilitate their healing in whatever way is possible. If I can, grease those wheels to make them, give them access to things that they wouldn't otherwise have access to help facilitate their healing. And if you're not getting better from the things I've been taught how to do, then what else is out there? What else can we learn? And this is where, again, that gap between bench science medicine and the clinical patient medicine, trying to be that bridge. And there are several of us who are working on being that bridge. When you hear people talk about cellular medicine, that's what we're talking about, is trying to be the bridge between the bench research and the practice of medicine in the clinic with the patient.
Okay. Well, see, this makes complete sense to me. Did you go to further education in other arenas? Like
Absolutely. I did a lot of, and then I sit down and read. I probably read 4 or 5 journal articles every morning. There's absolutely no way I'm going to keep up with the ridiculous volume of research that's out there.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
That's my best attempt, is to try to read 4 or 5 journal articles every day. And they're usually on the subjects that I'm interested in because of the patients that I've seen in the last week. So I'll say, oh, I've had 3 patients with benign prostatic hypertrophy. Let me go research what's the primary problem, what's the disease state, and how do we correct it? Is there anything that we're not doing? Oh, what is this sympathetic nervous system thing with benign prostatic hypertrophy? How interesting that this is. And there's tons of research out there on the sympathetic nervous system and prostatic hypertrophy. The inferior hypogastric nerve is the nerve that supplies the prostate. And if we can turn down the sympathetic drive in that nerve, then wow, we can improve people's ability to urinate. They come back and say, I feel like I'm peeing like a 14-year-old.
Oh, that would be amazing. So it literally is a numbing of a nerve. Is that what you're saying?
It's a local anesthetic. So that's what its initial effect is for about 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
But the effect on the cell membrane is what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to get that cell membrane to repolarize. So instead of staying in this constant sympathetic dominant state, it's able to be flexible and go back and forth between that parasympathetic and sympathetic, depending on what's happening in the cell. Because a constant sympathetic state is going to send messages to the brain and to the immune system. Oh my gosh, something is wrong. The sky is falling. Please come help and fix me. So all the healing elements come to the area, hypertrophy begins to happen, scar formation begins to happen, and now we block off the ability of urine to exit. And then we begin to create problems at the kidney level because of the problems at the prostate level. So it's a sequential worsening potentially over time.
So that treatment would actually be kind of like a resetting the hard drive of that area. It's a
Potentially,
complete,
yes.
yeah. So even though it's a 20-minute numbness, when that's over, something resets. Not necessarily
Yes.
after one treatment or maybe
No,
several.
it requires several, usually about, it's weekly, and it requires anywhere from 8 to 12 weekly sessions.
That's a commitment.
It is
Is it painful?
mildly, like
Mildly?
getting any shot.
Oh, okay. Where's the shot go?
There's a window in the abdominal wall where the muscle layers come together, and there's an opening in that. So it's just in the abdominal wall down near the pelvis.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was coming in the back door, so that would not be as much fun.
No, no.
You can charge me for this if you want. Send me a bill. Where do you find somebody that does this? I mean, I guess I'd have to go online, or what do I? I don't think my own primary care doctor knows about this.
There are several, and there are several doctors who do it. I can look and see if I can find someone who does it in your area. The National Association of Neurotherapists is out there, NAANT, and they would have a list of providers who do neural therapy, is what that's called. And so that's an option. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Look at me finding stuff out. I could talk to you for like 9 hours, but we're not going to do that, are we? If folks want to get a hold of you, is there anything that you would like to promote in terms of your website? Or I don't know if you've, I didn't thoroughly, well, I did read what I was sent, but I might have missed something. So let's promote you. Let's promote you and your work.
Yes. I have a new book out called Clockwise.
Oh,
it's
yes.
available
That's what I
Amazon.
Forgot. Okay. So I need treatment from memory because I forgot the counterclockwise. But okay, go ahead.
It's very exciting. I got my first 5-star review this week, so I'm really excited about that. I know. Yay.
Yeah, that's huge.
So that is out this week. It's been, I started writing a year ago, January. So it's been a long journey. My publisher went out of business mid-book. So that was a big challenge. Yeah. So here we are, and it's done, and it's on the racks. So it's very exciting. If you need to get hold of me, I'm on Instagram at Dr. S. Ferree, DRSFERREE. And the book is on Amazon. It's called Counterclockwise.
Well, I'm so happy to have met you. What a wonderful talk. I think if I would love to have you back sometime, because there's so much that I can learn, and my audience, they love these topics because we're pushing toward the future and improving with knowledge what we can do to improve our health and our health and optimal living, vibrant health. Let's go with vibrant.
I love that. That's great.
It's my favorite word today. Mm-hmm. Today. Not every day. So I'm trying to end this thing, but I'm not sure how to do it. Maybe you can help me. Thank
you, Bob. It's been a pleasure.
There you go. It's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you so much for being here, and best of luck on the book. And folks, get the book. You're going to find out how to turn back the clock. You will. You'll do it. You'll read the book and you'll go, oh, I can do this. Practical, actionable things in there. Yes. I can tell by talking to you that that's the case. Yeah. Actionable. No, that's my new favorite word. Things you can do.
Vibrant, actionable.
Vibrant and actionable living. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to even keep this in during the edit, but it's, we like to ramble at the end so we can go back into our day as just like regular folks instead of, official podcast people. Thank you, Suzanne.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, Bob.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. The YouTube channel is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. I want to thank Dr. Suzanne Ferree for being on the show. Check out her book, Counterclockwise, and find out even more about longevity, anti-aging, and some of the newer protocols that are available. Have a fantastic day. Thank you.